Hi, I'm Alicia Dolan, a Stampin' Up! Independent demonstrator. Thank you for joining me in my stamping corner. Tonight we are going to make a cute birthday card that looks like this. So stick with me as we go through the steps. Alright, so here we are in our stamping area and we are going to get started and make this happy birthday card. So first we need a piece of cinnamon cider cardstock, and this cardstock is cut to 8.5 by 5.5, and along this side we are going to score it at 4.25. So we just measure it up at 4.25 and use our scoring blade, and then when we take it out of there we can fold it right in half and grab our bone folder to make sure our crease is nice and smooth, and we'll set that aside for a moment. Next, we need to cut a piece of Mossy Meadow cardstock to 4 by 5.25, and this one is already cut at 5.25 along one side, so we're going to cut the other side at 4, and we'll set that extra piece aside. So there is our next layer of the card. Now we're going to cut a piece of Whisper White cardstock. We're going to cut 2 pieces out of this. We're going to cut the piece that we will stamp the car on and the piece that we're going to stamp Happy Birthday. So we are going to cut this one at 2 inches, and then we will cut it at 3.5 along the other side. So this piece will measure 2 by 3.5. And then we need another piece that measures 1 3/4 by 3 3/8. So we'll cut this one at 3 3/8. Set this little extra piece aside and we'll turn it, and we need to cut it at 1 3/4. Alright, so now we have that. We also need a piece of designer series paper, and this is the cinnamon cider side of the ice cream paper. And this came from the card pack, a paper pack called the Ice Cream Corner Designer Series paper. So this piece we're going to cut 5.25 by 1 1/4, and let's see, it's already at 5.25 this way, so we need 1 1/4 along the other side. And we'll set that extra piece aside, and then we need to cut one more piece of cinnamon cider cardstock. And we need that to be 3 5/8 by 2. So we'll cut it at 2. And then we need 3 5/8. All right. So now on our Mossy Meadow piece of cardstock, we are going to do some stamping, and I am going to get my Stampin' Pierce mat out just because I like it a little better as a surface for stamping. And I've taken the little gears from the Geared Up Garage Stampin' Up set, and there is a little set of little nuts on there, and we are going to stamp those in Mossy Meadow on our Mossy Meadow cardstock. So first we're going to open our Mossy Meadow up, and we're going to gently apply some ink to our stamp, and then we are going to stamp all around this cardstock with these little gears. And you can turn and stamp as you will. Let's see, I'm gonna bring my card just back over here just so I can see how far in I need to stamp on each side. Kind of turning it a little bit here and there as I go. Probably good. So I'll stamp off a little bit, and then I'm just going to grab my purple chamois and clean my stamp. And this block that I'm using for this one is actually the C block. So it's one of the smaller clear blocks. And then I'm going to close up my Mossy Meadow for now. I'm going to get my Stamparatus out. And I'm going to stamp using Jet Black StazOn the Happy Birthday from the Sweet Ice Cream bundle. And the Sweet Ice Cream bundle, if you order the bundle, it comes with the stamp set and the ice cream punch. But all we're going to use tonight is just the Happy Birthday from the bundle. And this is a photopolymer set, so that means the stamps are clear. And we're going to use this one that says Happy Birthday. And I'm going to grab our piece of white that is 2 by 3.5. So right now we're going to do this Happy Birthday up here. So we'll set it in a place that feels comfortable for us, and then just slide our magnet over top to hold it in place. We can line up our Happy Birthday. And then when we close the plate, we'll pick up that happy birthday stamp. We're going to ink it up with our jet black StazOn. Just by tapping it a few times. I've used my StazOn quite a bit today, so I might need to re-ink it pretty soon. So there is our happy birthday. And I'm going to grab my chamois and clean that stamp off real quick. Right, and I've got most of the ink off there, and then I can put that over to the side and take my happy birthday off. And next I'm going to stamp my classic car stamp. So I'm going to line up my piece of, this is the smaller piece of white that we cut. So it's 1 3/4 by 3 3/8. And then from the Geared Up Garage set, we are going to grab the car and we'll line that up where we want it to be. Close our plate to pick that up. And now we'll ink that up with our jet black ink. Just kind of making sure that we get all of the little, you don't want to press hard with your ink pads, just gently, but a lot of times, because you don't want the ink to smear around on that stamp. You just want it to be all the raised parts to be covered. All right, and then we can close the plate to stamp on our paper, and it looks like that worked the first time. Sometimes if you feel like your image isn't clear enough, if you're using the Stamparatus, you can ink it up a little bit more and stamp again without anything scooting around, so that you just darken your image. And I'm going to grab my chamois again and clean off my stamp. Alright, and then I'm going to put my stamp aside so I can put that away a little bit later when I'm done. And we can take our car out and move our Stamparatus somewhere else. And then if you wanted to, you could put these both on your card this way without doing any extra coloring. But tonight I'm going to show you how to color in your car a little bit and give a little bit of color to your happy birthday. So what we're going to do first is grab our little sponge . Hold on 1 second. I thought I had my green sponge out already. And I'm afraid I might have put it away. Oh, here it is, right here. So I keep all of my sponges in a little baggie with the color inside there. So for some of the colors, I'll keep several of the greens in the same bag. Like this one has Old Olive in it and also the Mossy Meadows. So you can see that this side I've used for one color and this side I've used for a different color. So what we're going to do is open up our Mossy Meadow ink and we're going to take our Happy Birthday, and this side here, whoops, where I used for Mossy Meadow earlier, we're just going to dab it on the Mossy Meadow ink a little bit, and then we're going to ink up the sides of our stamped image. I just feel like this helps soften the edges a little bit. I don't always do it, but it does seem to make a little difference in the depth of the image. Okay, so that's all we're going to do with that one. And then we're going to open it up, and you can see how there's a little bit of green in the lid of this one. That happens if you close your ink pad and then give it a little bit of a squeeze in the middle. Then you can open it back up and there'll be a little bit, sometimes a little bit more or a little bit less ink in there. And tonight we're going to use our blender pen to pick up that ink color and add it to our image. So all we're going to do is kind of swirl that around in there, and then we're going to color along the lines of the car. So we'll start at the bottom. And what this does is it basically turns the blender pen into a marker. So we'll go along the lines and then we'll spread it down a little bit. And we'll add a little bit more and kind of go along the next line and then pull it down. And you want to work kind of quickly when you're doing this, especially with the Whisper White, because it isn't a very thick cardstock. And so if you're not careful, it can tear your cardstock up a little bit because the marker is a little bit damp in order to pick up that color. Okay. So we'll just go along each of the lines, coloring that car in. Okay. And around the fender. And we'll try to go in some light layers a little bit instead of real heavy coloring. You could also use colored pencils or the Stampin' Right markers. got a couple spots left. All right, and then I like to kind of look at it a little bit and see if it needs any extra shading, and just kind of making a little extra along the lines where there might be a little more color. I did a little bit outside of the line there. All right, and then that's it for our green. So I'm just gonna wipe that a little bit. And then I took a little bit of smoky slate, and using the same process, I colored in some of the pieces that would be shinier silver. And the wheels. And in the picture you can't really tell, but I also took my Rink of Stella brush and used a little bit of that sparkle over top of the places where I colored gray, just to give it a little extra shine. It doesn't show up very well in the pictures, but in person it does give it a little extra sparkle. All right, and now we will put it together. So we're going to take our car and turn it upside down and put some of our liquid glue on the back. And I just use a thin line of liquid glue around the edges. And when you're doing that, you just really want a very fine line and a fine amount. Let me hold that up a little bit so maybe you can see how it's just a little bit around there. You don't want so much that it oozes out, and you don't want so much that it makes your paper too wet, because it will make it wrinkle. All right, so that's put together. And then next we're going to take our Mossy Meadow and do the same thing. a nice fine line around the edges. And then I always do a little squiggle through the middle. I think this one you may be able to see a little bit better how that it's a nice fine line. And then we're going to set that in the center. Okay, so there is our background piece. And next we're going to attach the happy birthday. There we go. And that we're going to put in a little bit, like probably about 1/4 of an inch from the top. And next we're going to take our designer series paper and flip it over. There we go. I think I may need a new glue soon. Must be starting to run out a little bit. Alright, and then we're going to put this not at the bottom, but kind of in the middle. So right about here. And then to attach our card, we are going to use some Stampin' Dimensionals. And I have 2 left along the edge of this. So I'm going to use those. And then I'll put a couple more on there. And then peel their backs off. And then we'll attach our card kind of so that it overlaps a little bit. There we go. And there you have it, a nice birthday card for any car lover. I hope you have a wonderful evening, and I'll look forward to next Stampin' Sunday together. Have a good night.